All right, that reminds me, invisibility. Please tell me.
I am so happy, Bob, to make your day and report that the stupid rule that you still get disadvantage when you attack an invisible creature that you can see, it's gone.
Oh, good.
Now, if you can see an invisible creature, it no longer gains the benefits of invisibility whatsoever.
Then why did Crawford double down on that?
I don't know, but he backpedaled on it pretty quick.
Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Cameron, aka Prince Phantom. We haven't seen him in a long time, but today he's back because we're going to talk about the upcoming. It's not a new edition.
It's not a
What is
new
it?
edition.
Not a new edition.
It's a revision to the core rule books. So it's it's not a new edition definitely because there's not enough rule changes. So if you look
Right.
back at fourth edition or third edition and compare them to their next edition, there's a lot that changes. This is not that. This is reiterating on 5e. This
But it
is
is a new set of books to buy.
it is, yes. Although I will say, to WotC's credit, I do think there's a bit more merit in buying these books than there have been in some of their more recent endeavors. So, and we're going to go over that today. This is first impressions of the new PHB. The embargo on it lifted today. We did not receive a copy of it early. However, we have been able to glean a lot from other sources around the internet. So we're going to try and compile a lot of that today, give you first impressions of it, and just try and hopefully be a little bit informative as to whether or not some of these rules and new revisions interest you.
Oh, first question. All right. New books have been released. We have new covers. Have they officially gone with one D&D?
No.
Good, because I really didn't like that.
Nah, I didn't really either. They've actually been not really referred to it as that in quite a while. Not since like playtest 7 or something, I think.
So what
Point
is the
being,
official name?
it's not much better. It is
Okay.
the 2024 Player's Handbook.
I can handle that. That is
Yeah,
that says what it is. I mean, honestly, it's 5.5,
yeah, yeah. It
but
kind of
I
is.
yeah, I can handle D&D 2024. That's fine.
Yeah. So
Just
as we're
one
going through
D&D never
things,
meant anything.
it doesn't. Yeah. So as we're going through things here, we're if we are referring to something from the 2014 Player's Handbook or another earlier book, there's some stuff that has been revised from Xanathar's and some stuff that has been revised from Tasha's. So if we're referring to the old version, I'm just going to call it the old version. And if it's the version appearing in the new book, I'm just going to call it the new version. Make sense to everybody?
Uh
Cool.
yes. Now the uh the new player's handbook includes revisions of stuff other like from the expansion books.
Yes. So a
Okay.
easy way to talk about this is the subclasses. Every class now has 4 subclasses. And in the PHB, the sorcerer, for example, only had 2.
Yeah.
So to do that, they drew from some other books, and there are actually 3 new subclasses. We'll get to those here in a minute. But they drew a lot of them from Tasha's and Xanathar's and revised those as well. So you'll notice the ones from Tasha's, and in fact, most of the things from Tasha's haven't received very much revision because they're pretty happy with Tasha's, and so am I, to be honest with you. It's
Yep.
probably the best book they've ever published. Um, so, but a lot of stuff from the original Player's Handbook has received some heavy revisions. So we're definitely going to get into some of that today and a lot more of it in upcoming videos.
Speaking of 4 subclasses per class, I think it's fair to assume we can expect expansion books in the future.
Yeah, I have to imagine that. Now, with that, I don't want people to feel like they're restricted because the first thing I want to talk about today as we get into our topics is backwards compatibility. Wizards and Jeremy Crawford have been preaching that this whole thing is backwards compatible with all previous 5th edition books. What this means is that let's say, for example, a campaign module. Say you would like to run Curse of Strahd. it still works with this system.
Right.
You don't need to edit hardly anything. Perhaps if there's a zombie, maybe you can replace the old zombie with the new zombie that's coming out in the monster manual next year. But
Or
aside from
don't.
that, or don't, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, do what you want, but it still works.
Yeah.
For player options, the easy way to think about this is anything that is being revised in this new player's handbook, you use the revised version. If it's not in this new player's handbook, keep using the old version.
Right.
So, for example, the Bladesinger Wizard is not in this player's handbook. So, therefore, if you'd like to play a Bladesinger Wizard, that's fine. Take the Bladesinger Wizard subclass and take the Wizard core class from this new book and smash them together, and it works.
Okay, good.
Now, there are a couple of little hiccups with that. The biggest one is subclass level progression. All subclasses now gain their first feature at level 3.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you probably immediately think of classes like the Cleric and Warlock that get their subclass at level 1.
And Sorcerer.
And Sorcerer, yeah, and Wizards get it at 2, and Druids get it at 2. So for those classes, is a very simple fix. All it is that now you don't get those subclass features until level 3. So if you take Tempest Cleric, then your reaction to deal lightning damage and your Channel Divinity to max out lightning and thunder damage, you get both of those at level 3 instead of at level 1 and level 2.
See, that's something I actually liked about that those particular classes getting their first subclass features at first level is because, if you're a warlock, you've made a pact and you're getting something for it. If you're a sorcerer, it's innately within you, and it's manifesting.
Yeah, that's a big complaint that I and some other people have had. There was, and I will talk about this because this is something kind of interesting to me. Through the playtesting, they did contemplate a system where every class's subclasses all match their level progression. So every class started at 3, got another feature at 6, got another feature at 10, and got another feature at 14. For every subclass of every class.
Right.
That would have been so nice for a lot of classes. Rogues, for example, go from level 3 to level 9 before they get their next subclass feature. Bards go from level 6 to level 14.
We're talking in the old books.
Yes, and still in these.
Oh, really?
This has not changed. They reverted back on this and went back to the old thing. The only change now is that every subclass starts at level 3. In my opinion, they got the worst of both worlds.
Yes. That's I can't believe it. All right, I haven't looked deeply into this, but when you said that, I thought, okay, they all get their first at 3, their second at 6, yada yada yada. No, they they botched that one.
So
perhaps
like I said, it's not a perfect book, but I will say, as I've started on kind of a negative, I like 95% of what is in this. So don't be too discouraged.
I'm not. So I'm optimistic.
So now, let's go through how you would create a character, because that's what a lot of people are interested in, right? So now backgrounds are much more important. Your background remains completely customizable. Now, there's a bit of issue with this because in the current player's handbook, I shouldn't say current, in the new player's handbook, there is like set backgrounds for you to choose, like acolyte and criminal and sage and those things. And it has been confirmed that in the upcoming Dungeon Master's Guide, there will be rules for customizing your background. The reason I really wish that was in the player's handbook is because there's only 16 backgrounds, and finding one that matches both your class, the ability scores you want, because your background now gives you your ability scores, a feat, and the general flavor of it. Finding a subclass a background that matches all of those, very difficult to do. with only 16 options. You may have one that just doesn't fit your character concept. So what I
Yeah.
recommend for people to do is just go ahead and customize them now. It's pretty simple. All you're going to do with your background is you're going to take your background is now the source of your ability score improvement, whereas it used to be part of your race.
Right.
And you can assign it however you want, either a +2 and a +1, or 3 +1s, as was before. So it's really just changing where it is. It's not actually changing much at all about your character.
Um, did you say all backgrounds also come with a feat now?
Yes. So let's talk about that. Backgrounds now provide what is called an origin feat. Origin feats are available at level 1. You get to pick one of them as part of your background. They're generally weaker than standard feats, and none of them have an ability score increase.
Makes
They're
sense.
all just a feature. So, for example, some example origin feats: Magic Initiate, which is actually not at all weaker than
No,
most others.
that's
Notice how I said weaker? Wizard still hasn't figured out how to balance their game.
no.
Um,
Wow.
and we can reap the benefits of that. Magic Initiate, which I believe, and don't quote me on this, I am again hearing a lot of this from secondhand sources, so if I get something wrong, I apologize, but I'm 90% sure on most of this stuff. Also allows you to cast the spell with spell slots. You're the first level spell you get. Remember, my main complaint with Magic Initiate is that you get to cast the spell once and then
Right.
no more. Yeah, I think they gave it the Fey Touch treatment, where now you can. So easy way to pick up shield on non wizards and sorcerers. Um, Things like that. Tough. There's some new origin feats. One that allows you to craft faster, and we'll get into crafting later. Um,
Yeah.
so
Tough,
they're
alert. Uh,
Yeah, alert is one.
like these make sense. Magic Initiate doesn't feel like a weaker origin feat.
Yeah, so like I said, that they still haven't quite figured out how to balance the game. They're supposed to be weaker. But yeah, you'll get to pick up one of those, and that'll be an easy way to customize your character. Race is now being called species. There are some obvious political correctness reasons for this, but also it kind of does make sense. Race is not really a term that is used to delineate between a lizard folk and a human. I believe we would all call that a different species, not a different
Yeah.
race.
Especially if you try and procreate. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
let's.
you know what? Speaking of that, they did away with the halvesies as well.
Yes. Now, that being said, I say did away with. They're not gone. You can still play them. You just use the 2014 version.
Right.
So the half elf and the half orc don't appear in the new player's handbook. You can still use the old one. And if you're using any old species, all you do is remove the ability score increase that they get, because now you're getting that from your background, and you're good.
Yeah.
So all this is not limiting your choices whatsoever. You can still go back and play those, but all of the player's handbook species have been revised, some of them quite heavily. The Dragonborn, famously one of the weakest species in all of D&D, now gets flight at level 5 temporarily a couple times per day. So they also added the Aasimar and the Orc to the player's handbook. They have also
Okay.
been revised. Aasimar as kind of a counterpart to the Tiefling, celestial counterpart to the Infernal, and Orcs because, I mean, Orcs are kind of a fantasy staple, so
A
it
fantasy
makes sense.
staple, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, your species, they've all been generally buffed, because frankly, the player's handbook species had been power crept to oblivion.
Mm.
Um, Only the very inhuman was still kind of good enough to stand up to everything else. So yeah, now on to classes. This is kind of the thing that everybody's here for, right?
There's one thing in the outline you didn't
Oh,
mention, alignment.
yes, yeah. Alignment no longer has anything to do with your species. They have actually been phasing this out for a while. You'll notice in some of the more recent releases, there's just been no talk about alignment at all
Yeah,
in
I've
the
never
race
really
section.
liked, well, I've never just liked alignment in general, unless it was appropriate to like a paladin or something. Okay, he's got to live by a code. Uh,
Yeah.
but for
Alignment
a rogue.
restrictions are never really that good.
Like and then but yeah, I really never liked them being assigned to races. That always rubbed me the wrong way. Just
Yeah,
like I can I can look at that black elf and know that he's evil. Like
it's better to stray away from that line of thinking.
yeah,
So
so
yeah,
I'm
that's
not bothered with these PC changes.
nah. These ones are probably for the better, just overall. So on to classes. All classes have received some significant changes in one way or another. Um, near as a hair across the board, they've been buffed. Um, the one specific area in a way that the marshals have been buffed is through a system called weapon mastery. This is a system that allows you to add extra effects on top of your the damage that you're doing with a weapon attack. Every weapon has a different mastery property, and if you, for example, the barbarian can select two weapons to have mastery in, and at the
Hmm.
end of a long rest can swap those out. So if he chooses a great axe, it has cleave, and that means when he swings and hits an enemy, if there's another enemy within 5 feet of that enemy, he can also hit the other one.
I remember Cleve from third edition. I'm glad they're bringing that back.
Yeah, they are actually. I'm not as familiar with that, so some of these might ring a bell to you. But they're bringing some elements of older editions kind of into this to juice it up a little bit. There's also Nick, which is a feature that is on some light weapons. It allows you to make the offhanded attack that would normally be part of two weapon fighting,
Hmm.
instead of as a bonus action, just as part of that attack. So if you are a level 1 character, you have one attack. Well, now you have two, and you still have your bonus action free.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
That's
so Nick is very cool. It actually kind of fixes a lot of the problems with two weapon fighting just by
good.
itself. So that there's going to be a lot of reevaluation of how marshals work the best now. There's going to be a lot of math done that has not been done yet, so don't quote me on all this. But the reason it's all going to have to be done is because sharpshooter and great weapon master no longer provide the -5 + 10.
Oh, shucks.
They do different things.
Well, that's probably a good thing for the
So
game.
it is a good thing in the way that it now means that martial characters aren't forced to go one of those two paths to actually
Right.
deal relevant damage. There are other damage buffs in this book that help marshals, I think, based on some early numbers that I've seen, keep pace with old martial numbers, and even in some cases surpass them.
All right.
So it
That's
seems
one
like
thing.
we don't need Great Weapon Master and Sharpshooter to do the +10 anymore. And two, we actually have a bit more build diversity in martials now.
That's
It
nice.
seems from early impressions that two weapon fighting, ranged combat, heavy weapons, sword and shield, all of these are viable now, which is not something I could have said a month ago.
Yeah.
Is either heavy weapons or ranged weapons. That's about all you could do. So that is
Now,
big.
from what you've seen, are martial characters look more compatible with the casters now? Not compatible, but
Comparable.
leveled.
Yeah, so martial characters are better than they were.
Right.
They generally received more buffs than the casters did, which is good. That's how it
Yep.
should have been. The gap is smaller, but the gap is still there. However, I don't think it's as big of a problem anymore. Marshals have been given a lot more stuff to do.
That's very important.
That is important because I believe that the main problem with the martial caster disparity wasn't really the numbers. It was the feeling at the table. And I believe that the feeling at the table is going to be better now. You have weapon masteries like push, which allows you to shove a creature with your attack. You're still dealing the damage, but you can also push them 10 feet. No save. And you can do that with every attack. So if you're a fighter, dishing out 4 attacks, action surging, and doing 4 more, You can push somebody 80 feet in a turn. I
That's
don't.
interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with this. It's definitely going to make marshals a lot more interesting to build. There's going to be genuine reasons to swap weapons mid-combat, which is never something you did in 5th edition.
Right.
So marshals are better. Now, however, casters were not nerfed.
No.
Not in many ways at all. And
Well,
most,
before we go on to casters, though, I got another question about
yeah,
marshals. Like, comparing the two. All right. Also, casters, amazing in combat. Yeah, they got a bunch of spells for that. But also out of combat, there's just so many freaking spells. Like, did marshals get anything else to do out of combat?
on that front, it's a little bit more bare bones, I have to admit.
Yeah.
Um, it's just difficult because some did. For example, the barbarian now can add their strength modifier instead of whatever other one they would use for a number of checks, including perception, intimidation, persuasion, as long as they're raging. So they get to use strength instead of whatever they would normally use, making the barbarian pretty darn good at skills. But
Trying to figure
that's
out how strength would modify perception while raging.
oh, it also modifies stealth. Wrap your head around that. so so there are ways they've done this. It's just never going to measure up to the versatility of spellcasters.
Yeah.
They would have to massively overhaul how marshals work, and that is not what this book is. This book is not a massive overhaul. It is a revision.
Right.
So yeah. As I said, there are 3 brand new subclasses. They are the College of Dance Bard, the Sea Druid, and the World Tree Barbarian. So the Dance Bard is a bit of a mix of a monk and a bard. It does a bunch of unarmed strikes and has a lot of movement and can move its allies around the battlefield easily. The Sea Druid works in a lot of area effects that emanate from itself. It has this big whirlpool effect around itself that can draw people in or push people out and do damage and stuff like that. The World Tree Barbarian has a lot of teleportation-based abilities and can kind of do the scorpion get over here thing and pull somebody close to them.
Question about the sea druid. Is that like based on like being near water?
No, there's no you have to be close to water or anything.
Okay.
It just
That's good.
works. Yeah, they've learned their lesson on that sort of thing,
Okay.
it seems. Um, there, as I said before, there are 4 subclasses per class, and all subclasses start at level 3. But beyond that, the subclass level progression remains the same for each class. Um,
Well, not.
let's
All right. Never mind. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Now, is there any? I'll say this much: of the classes that have been revised, there are some real standouts here. Some ones that in particular got a lot of love include the Warlock, which was already my favorite class in the game. They somehow managed to make it even more appealing, despite the fact that the subclass starts at level 3. Overcoming that fact, it
Yeah.
is amazing.
Are you
We'll get
talking about
into
like core warlock or
both Core Warlock and its
yeah?
subclasses. The Great Old One subclass used to be a laughing stock of the Warlock. It is spectacular now. The Archfey patron was pretty below average. Now it lets you teleport all around the battlefield constantly, casting Misty Step as a bonus action with a bunch of free uses and doing all this other crazy stuff with it and adding on all these other bunch of effects. The Warlock is super cool now. Additionally, I am happy to report that the Monk is so improved. They finally figured it out. To give you a quick overview of some of the things, Key is now called Focus. Whatever. Focus points are restored a lot more easily. You get them back at the beginning of initiative. You get them back on a short rest. There's another feature that lets you regain them by taking a bonus action. There's a lot of ways to restore your key. So that's really good. Initially, their martial arts die went up from starting at a D4 to a D6.
Okay.
So that is a flat +1 damage to all of your unarmed strike rolls. That's not much, but it adds up. We'll take it.
Sure.
The subclasses are so much better. They are actually good. We have not done the monk subclass ranking on this channel yet. I look forward to it now because when we do it, I can have some good subclasses to talk about. I'm so
I'm-
excited.
I kind of hope we get to do the bad ones first.
We can cover both of them. It's fine.
Yeah.
So, um, the so yeah, the monk is really good.
Which four monk subclasses do we get?
It was the way of the open hand, the way of shadow, the way of four elements, and the way of mercy.
I like Shadow. I like the old Shadow.
You'll
Okay.
like
I
what
mean,
they've
for a
done with
monk.
it. Yeah, you'll like what they've done. And the way of four elements actually works now.
Okay, neat.
So definitely looking forward to being able to go over all of those. The Ranger, in typical Ranger fashion, had some problems. Um, it doesn't. They really want you to cast Hunter's Mark and concentrate on it all the time. And they don't want you to lose concentration on it. And a lot of the subclass features want you to concentrate on it and use your bonus action on it to move it around. Even the Beastmaster, which also uses its bonus action to command its pet.
Well, that's not ideal.
No, it's not. There's some problems with the Ranger. We'll get to that eventually. It's still not a bad class. Don't get me wrong. It's still probably above average in terms of power level. I just have some problems with the way they designed. So, that being said, are there any specific class questions that you had that you wanted me to answer? I'll answer to the best of my ability.
Would they do anything fun with the core rogue?
Yeah, so rogues now get a sweet feature. I believe it starts at level 6. No, it starts at level 5. Excuse me. Where they can do slightly less damage when they sneak attack to impose a secondary effect. So, for example, say if you're a 5th level rogue, that means you have 3d6 sneak attack damage. You can instead do 2d6 and have a sweet other effect, like tripping your target or poisoning them or doing something else. There's a whole giant list of them, and that list expands as you increase in rogue level.
I really like that.
Yeah, you're really gonna like what they've done with the rogue. I don't think it's increased the rogue's power a ton, but it has massively increased their versatility and
Just
definitely made
making
them a
it
whole
more
lot more
interesting to
fun.
play, and yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
like I mean that sort of thing. You say it doesn't increase its power, but if you if you do a significant amount of damage and knock somebody prone or give them some other effect that your allies can take advantage of, that's you know
yeah.
symbiotically powerful.
I think there's one at higher levels that just straight up knocks your target unconscious if they fail a save. So there is some really good stuff in it. Don't get me wrong, and it's definitely going to be a lot more fun to play at the table. So with that, do you want to move on to spells?
Yeah, let's do it.
So there are 26 spells that are either entirely new, because there are some new spells in here, or they are so radically changed from their previous edition that they are basically new in everything but name. This includes all of the conjure spells. Every conjure spell that includes conjure animals, conjure wild beings, conjure elemental, conjure celestial, all of those type of spells are radically different now. They no
Does it
longer
include the summon?
no.
Okay.
We'll get to that. The summon spells from Tasha are now what you're going to be going to summon physical creatures onto the battlefield because the conjure spells no longer do that. They have different effects. There's not a
Okay.
uniform rule for any of them. Some create an area of effect that does damage. Some work like Spirit Shroud, empowering your melee attacks. It's completely unique for all of them. We talked before we did this video. We're probably going to have videos covering each of them individually because they are so far removed from what they were before that they are entirely new spells and deserve their own dedicated videos.
All right.
So look forward to those. And yeah, the Tasha's spells, all of the Tasha summon spells made it into the new PHB. If you want to summon a creature and have it physically aid you in battle, that's how you do it now. And I'm generally in favor of this. This is lowering the power level of casters, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
And it also is much easier to run at the table than summoning 8
Oh, yeah.
wolves.
Conjure woodland beings, minor elementals. Those are just nuts.
Yeah. So it is a good change. There are some notable spell exploits that have been addressed. For example, simulacrums can no longer cast simulacrum. That
That's
was an exploit.
definitely for
I
the
don't know if
best.
you've been told about that one before. That's
Oh
that
yeah, it's in
means
our simulacrum video.
yeah, that one instantly breaks the game if you do it.
Yes.
So that's been removed. There are a couple of other things like that. I won't go into super long detail, but yeah, there are some specific exploits that have been removed. All healing spells have been buffed.
Ooh.
Um, not by a lot, but Cure Wounds, for example, now heals 2d8 rather than 1d8 plus
Does it
1.
still cost an action and have a range of touch?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Like I said,
then
slightly.
I don't really give a shit about the 2d8.
That's kind of the thing, isn't it? Because it's not really changing the effectiveness of the spell.
No,
It's still probably only. It might help somebody survive 2 attacks now instead of 1.
maybe.
Maybe you get lucky on the dice.
Yeah.
So the higher level ones, it's a bit more significant. For example, Mass Cure Wounds does a significant bit more healing than the previous version of it. So, your mileage is going to vary. It'll just feel slightly better to cast healing spells than it did before. But you're probably still only casting them to bring up downed party members. You're not doing it to top people off.
Right.
It's not changing the role of healing spells.
Yeah, because I mean, did any of the other like multitude of healing things change, or were they
No,
taken away? No. All right.
no. So, all right. Many spells were also subtly changed. For example, some dropped or gained concentration. For example, Force
That's not too
Cage.
subtle,
Yeah. Well, Force Cage, for example,
depending on the
now,
spell.
yeah. Force Cage requires concentration. Spiritual Weapon requires concentration now, which I know is a big hit that a lot of people didn't like. I never thought the spell was that good to begin with, but I mean, hey, sure. Now it's definitely not that good, and he definitely shouldn't be casting it. So now I am right, ha! So there are some specific spell changes that I wanted to go over that I have learned about so far. This is not a comprehensive list, but some things I thought you might want to know. True Strike doesn't suck anymore.
Oh, that's interesting.
True Strike now kind of works like one of the blade cantrips, like a Green
Booming
Flame
blade.
Blade or
Yeah.
Boom Blade. Yeah, it works similar to that. It causes you to make an attack roll, and it uses your spellcasting modifier. So it now actually has a function, and a lot of builds are actually going to want that. So True Strike is cool now. Um, Divine Favor. You may not remember what this one does. It's a Paladin exclusive that adds a D4 to each of your attack rolls.
Right.
Your damage rolls, excuse me, not your attack rolls.
Okay.
Used to require concentration. Doesn't anymore. That
That's
actually
yeah,
makes
that's
that
pretty
spell
big.
a lot more interesting. And
Yes.
some people may actually want to cast that.
Anything that encourages you to get up in people's face and requires concentration is a problem.
Yeah,
Speaking
exactly.
of which, how about vampiric touch?
No word on that yet.
Oh,
I'm also not entirely sure if is that printed in the PHP or Xanathars. I think it's printed in the PHP. I'll get back to you on that one. Um, uh, Also, alongside that, Blade Ward now require. You remember that one's a cantrip,
yeah, yeah. I remember
causes you to
Blade
dis.
Ward.
Yeah. Now it costs concentration, lasts for a minute, and subtracts a D4 from all bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage that's dealt to you.
Well, at least
So
that's mitigating, the
it's
stuff that
interesting.
breaks your concentration. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure exactly how good it is, but it's a whole lot more interesting than the previous version. So I
Yeah.
like that. Fine Steed. I'm so sorry to report to our dear Fine Steed enjoyer,
Uh-oh.
it no longer shares spells.
Oh, that's a big hit.
It does share healing,
Eh,
but not other self spells anymore.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm very
Does
sorry to report that one.
does it summon a real horse rather than a fey spirit shaped like a horse?
I'll get back to you on that one.
All right.
So, also, this one I didn't have written down here, but I did just watch a video about it. Witch Bolt is actually
Uh-oh.
kind of cool now. So, you first off, the initial damage is now 2d12 instead of 1. So that's better. And hit or miss with that first attack, you can automatically deal the 1d12 damage as a bonus action
Hmm.
instead of your whole action. And the range has been increased to 60 feet, making it harder for your target to leave. And it is there was one other buff to it. I can't remember. Either way, It's a much better spell now, and you might actually consider casting it.
Well,
So
cool.
some of the super weak spells got some really significant buffs, and some of the really bad ones, I mean, the really good ones, got some, some nerfs.
That's good.
I would say that spells are more balanced across the board now.
All right, that's spells. What else we got?
All right, let's move on to feats. I already talked about Great Weapon Master and Sharpshooter and their revisions, but we now actually have 4 different categories of feats. So let's go over those. I already mentioned Origin feats, those that you get at level 1 that are marketed as weaker than
Like
level
Magic
1s.
Initiate.
Yes. There are also, as you mentioned, fighting styles are now feats.
That's interesting.
They have a prerequisite that you have the fighting style feature. This feature is given by all the martial classes, just like how it was before. This now means, though, that a fighter, if they wanted to, when they get their fighting style at level 1, they get to pick one of these feats. But also, when they got to level 4, if they wanted another one, they could take another one.
Okay, so all right, before fighters were getting fighting styles and they were getting feats. Now they're still getting the same amount of these.
Yes.
Okay,
So,
that's good.
so fighting, when you choose a feat at level 4, you can get any feat that you qualify for. The only qualification for picking a fighting style feat is that you have the fighting style feature.
Okay.
So if you get reach level 4 and you've picked up archery, and you say, well, I'm also dabbling in a bit of melee combat, I'll take great weapon fighting. Nobody would actually do this, but if you did, you could now. Whereas before, you fighting styles and feats were a completely separate pool.
That might have been an interesting way to take, like Great Weapon Master and Sharpshooter, just make them, give them a fighting style prerequisite.
Yeah, could have. Um,
They didn't. Okay.
they didn't. Next, we have normal feats. These are feats that are available at level 4 and beyond. These are where you're going to find your Warcasters, your Fey Touched, your Polearm Master, your Great Weapon Master, and Sharpshooter. They do different things now. They're not useless anymore. They're
Right.
not useless, but they're not, ubiquitous like they were.
Right.
Um, and all of these now come with an ability score increase.
All of them.
Yes.
Wow.
So you're getting a +1 plus features. I should also mention the actual ability score increase is a feat now. It's a feat that you take to get +2 to a +2 to 1 ability score or +1 to 2 ability scores, and you can take
Well,
it
I
as
mean,
many times as you want.
that's the
It
same as
doesn't
before,
change
though, right?
anything. It doesn't
Yeah,
change
that's
anything. It's just
okay.
it's just streamlining some things. That's all it's doing.
All right.
Um, and finally, the final category of feats is epic boon feats. These are only available at level 19,
So nobody will ever use these.
but they are the epic boons from the Dungeon
Yeah.
Master's Guide that nobody ever used, but did exist and were meant to be rewards for post level 20 characters. Well, now you get them at level 9. You get one at level 19, and these epic boon feats are real juice. They got some cool stuff in there. Haven't gotten to go over specifics of them yet, but judging based on the playtest, there's some real cool stuff in here. Like spellcasters being able to instantly recover high level spell slots. So there's some good stuff. And also, they allow you to increase your ability score that you choose from because they come with a +1 to an ability score. They allow you to increase it above 20.
Whoa.
Now, you may say, okay, well, if my ability score was 20 and I'm bumping it up to a 21, that doesn't actually change anything because you only get an increase to your mod on
Right.
even numbers. Well, the intention for this is that you earn more epic boon feats if you increase past level 20. There's a
Okay.
way for your dungeon master to reward you playing past level 20 and still give you tangible rewards. So you
That's
can,
nice.
take a +1 to your int with the first one, take a +1 to your int with the second one, maybe at a 22. If you're technically like a level 21 character. So that's how all the feats work. I haven't gotten to delve deep into the feats to give you specifics like I've done with some of the spells. Like I said, deluge of information today. I've only been able to consume so much. But
before we move on, have you gotten to look at any of them? Like say
a
like
couple.
what's the one that's coming to mind that's completely useless? Keen Mind, for example.
So I haven't gotten to see Keen Mind officially yet, but in the play test, it had some slight better utility, but no, it wasn't much better.
Oh, shucks. Um,
I wouldn't
have you
get
seen any that were like completely useless that are now better?
uh yes. I can't remember exactly how, but I believe Athlete has been improved in some significant ways.
Okay.
I know that
Does it affect your athletics checks? Come on, athlete. Come
I
on, come on.
think so.
All
I
right.
think so. The grappler feat, which used to be completely useless, now actually
Yeah.
has some real utility, and I could see grapple builds actually taking it. Um, the healer feat actually improves healing spells now.
All right.
Again,
That's
not to a
something.
significant enough amount where you're actually going to use them to top people off, but you know, it is what it is.
But
It does
something.
it does what it says on the tin now, so
Yes.
that's good. Um, oh, that reminds me. Speaking of things doing what they say on the tin, the chill touch spell. It's a touch spell
Oh,
now.
does it chill?
Yeah.
Whoa!
So hey,
They
that's
really,
what it says on the
they
tin.
really fixed that one.
Yeah.
What about? I'm sorry, going back to spells. One
Yeah.
more. I just want one more. Find traps. Does it find
Haven't heard of
traps?
that one yet. Haven't heard
Shucks.
on that one
All
yet.
right.
I'll get back to you. Like I said, we got a lot of information today, and I've been looking for that one. Nobody's reported on that one yet. I have been looking for that one. So I
Okay.
will tell you as soon as I know. Um, but yeah, that's really all I've got for feats. Like I said, there are going to be some revisions to those. We'll talk more about them in detail later. So now I want to talk about general rules changes. These are not specific to class or subclass or anything like that. But many rules have been condensed and clarified, but are other than that remain largely unchanged. If I'm not mentioning something here, that means it's probably not been changed. I'm just going to go over the things that receive significant enough changes to actually warrant mention in an overview video like this. So, big one here, spellcasting. Do you remember, and you probably don't remember it exactly, and this is the reason it was changed, the rules for casting a spell with your bonus action?
There was something where like if one spell costs an action, you couldn't do something with a bonus action, but if you used a bonus action to cast a spell, you could. No, no.
Okay,
I
good.
remember
So
what you're
they've
referring
changed
to,
it.
but yeah,
Forget all that. Stop
good.
trying to remember it.
I won't. I mean,
The
I
rule
will.
is
Yeah.
very simple now. You may only cast one spell using a spell slot per turn.
Okay.
So that means you can cast a cantrip with your bonus action or something, or if you get an extra action somehow. You could cast a spell that you get from a feature that doesn't require you to expend the spell slot to cast it. For example, if your race gives you a spell, or your species, excuse me, take a while for that one. If your species gives you a spell that you can cast without expending a spell slot, you can do that and then cast a leveled spell with a spell
Right.
slot. So that actually opens up a lot of cool like build stuff that I'm really excited about that wasn't possible before and now is. So I get back to you on that. That's got some juice in it. Um,
Uh, Now going beyond that, I don't see it here in the in I've read up a little bit on this, but spellcasting in general has gotten a little bit of an overhaul, if I recall correctly, in that like there used to be different kinds of spellcasting, prepared, non-prepared, ritual, like
yeah, we can go over that.
yeah,
So all spellcasters are ritual casters now,
okay,
for one, which is great. This is great for stuff like the sorcerer and people like that. Additionally, all caster classes are called prepared casters now. Difference being, you remember how the sorcerer, for example, learned two spells and then was locked in with those. They could swap
right,
one out when they leveled up. Whereas with the cleric, could swap out their entire list
yeah,
on on a long rest. So that is different now. The every class doesn't work the exact same. For example, the cleric can still swap out their whole list whenever they want. The sorcerer can't do that exactly, but it has a lot more freedom than it used to.
that's nice.
So it's better versatility for spellcasters across the board. Additionally, when you cast a spell now, you take a special action called the magic action. Magic action is used to cast a spell, use a magic item, activate a magical device, things like that. It's functionally not changing anything. It's just rules codifying. For example, some features may refer to a magic action. The fighter's
Right.
action surge, for example, says you can't use this extra action for a magic action. So the fighter action surge no longer allows you to double fireball in one turn. So that little bit of tech is removed.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, that's any other questions about spellcasting rules and as a whole?
No, that's as much as I've looked into this. So yeah.
Okay. Unarmed strikes are changed a little bit. So this is mostly relevant for monks, obviously. When making an unarmed strike, you can either deal damage as normal or attempt to grapple and shove. Grappling and shoving now also no longer is a contested ability check. It imposes a saving throw.
Okay.
Now, what this means essentially is that it's more clear now that you can incorporate grapples and shoves into your regular chain of attacks. And the saving throw part means that against some monsters, it may be very difficult to land a grapple or a shove. Whereas in the previous version of the rules, you could build a character that was very consistent at grappling because they could get a plus 15 to their athletics check. It's going to be a lot harder to consistently land grapples now. So
That
I'm kind of bummed about that personally. But
I'm entirely indifferent to that. I've never been
yeah, I
a fan of
figured.
grappling, but yeah, I know a lot of people do like grappling.
Um, Additionally, potions, specifically healing potions, can be consumed or administered as a bonus action. So it used to be an action before, now it is a bonus action. However, we do not have word yet on if this is true for all potions, as the player's handbook only includes the potion of healing. Other potions are considered a magic item, and they will be in the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Okay.
So, yet to be seen if that applies to all potions. Kind of hope it doesn't, to be honest with you, because some potions are crazy, but maybe it does, and
I,
we'll
I,
just
I would I
tackle
would
it.
I would imagine the action is the same though. Gulp,
Yeah,
whatever's in the bottle. I
that's
mean, a
true.
lot of times
Yeah,
you don't even know what's in there. Like, so how does that action work? Like, this could
that's
be
a fair
healing,
point,
it could
actually.
be fly, whatever.
I
Like,
yeah, I guess you put it that way. I'm gonna hedge my bets that they are all probably bonus action, but that is not official yet. So that is yet to be seen. Um,
yeah.
Grenades. When I say that word, I'm talking about acid vials, uh, alchemist fire, holy water, those sorts of throwables. They are now items that can be thrown as part of your attack action. This is written in their rules. So you can, if you're a person with an extra attack, you can swing a sword and throw an acid vial as part of the same attack action. Um, they also impose a saving throw rather than an attack roll, which is a big rules clarification because if you remember when we did the Thief Rogue video, there are a lot of questions about how throwing an acid vial actually works in this
Yeah.
game. That's all been cleared up. It's just a saving throw now, and they take damage. So, nets. But Bob, were you aware of how nets work in 5th edition?
No, I've never used a net.
There's a good reason for that. I'll give you a quick rundown. Nets they're a ranged weapon that have a 5-foot range and a 15-foot long range. Do you happen to remember the penalty for attacking with a ranged weapon while within 5 feet of a foe?
No, but I remember there was one.
You get disadvantage.
Oh,
And do you know what the penalty for attacking at long range with a net is? Disadvantage.
disadvantage. Yeah.
So there is literally no way to attack with a net and not have disadvantage. You're either within 5 feet and you have disadvantage because of the range attack rules, or you're more than 5 feet, so you have disadvantage because of the long range rules.
Well, all right.
That's
That's
been
really
fixed.
interesting. But you know what? It just occurred to me. This may be the only thing I've done in real life that I haven't done in D&D. I've actually tossed out a
You've cast a
cast net.
net.
Yeah, and caught fish with it.
Yeah, me too. It's quite fun.
Yeah.
And it actually works in real
Yeah.
life. So now it works in D&D. So
Oh, good
they
for this.
impose a saving throw now. So it just works. Um, let's talk about crafting. It won't take long because the crafting rules are pretty simple. You choose a non-magical equipment, and if you have the downtime, raw materials, and tools needed to craft that item, you do so, and it only costs you half of the gold cost that it would normally cost. And the time is measured equal to 10 gold pieces per day. So, for example, if you're attempting to craft a suit of plate armor, it normally costs 1,500 gold. It will instead cost you 750 and 75 days.
What are you spending this gold on? You're doing all the work. You got all the raw materials.
And I assume it's telling you that that's the cost of purchasing the raw materials.
All right. That yeah,
I
yeah, I can sort of
assume.
buy that.
Although if I was a dungeon master and you already had them, like you had scavenged them from something, I would
Right.
totally waive a lot of that cost off. So it's be malleable with it, dungeon masters. If your party slays a dragon and they say they want to make plate armor out of dragon scales, let them do it. That sounds metal as heck. And
Well,
don't
they
charge
slayed a
them a bunch of
dragon. They
gold for it.
probably got the gold. That's fine.
Yeah, well, that too. Um, so yeah, that's basically all the rules for crafting. The rules for crafting magic items, I do not know yet. I believe they're going to be in the Dungeon Master's Guide anyway, so I'm not sure if we're going to get those just yet. But that yeah, that's the whole rules. There's not much to it.
Yep.
Spell scrolls though are a bit different. You used to need Arcana proficiency. Now you can have either Arcana proficiency or Calligrapher's tools proficiency. So this opens up scribing spells to a couple classes that didn't have access to Arcana before. Um, Additionally, the time and gold cost to scribe has been generally reduced across the board. So, I believe for like the lowest level stuff, it's still about the same cost and time, but for the higher level stuff, it's not quite as expensive and it doesn't take quite as long. So,
I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel like you need some knowledge of Arcana to be able to scribe
that's a good
magic
point.
scrolls.
That's a good point. I don't think just being able to draw fancy should
Right?
qualify you
Fancy.
for that.
Woo.
Yeah. Well, either way. Um, let's talk about surprise. The surprise rules in the old BHB are busted because it gives you an entire round where all of your attacks have advantage and they don't get to move or do anything, and you can basically automatically win the fight. It's the reason that Pass Without Trace is the strongest second level spell in the game, because if you sneak up on an enemy, you basically auto win.
Right.
Surprise rules have been massively overhauled. Now, if you surprise your target, they have disadvantage on their initiative check. That's it.
Yeah.
Additionally, surprise rules interact with the invisible condition and the hide rules. If you are invisible or hidden when you roll initiative, you have advantage on that check. So if you make it all go perfect, you're hidden and you attack from cover and they don't see you coming, you'll have advantage on your initiative rolls and they'll have disadvantage. That's still really good and really useful and still definitely worth going for, but not game warping.
Right.
Being able to go first in combat is still going to be a huge boon, but now you're not getting an entire extra turn.
All right, that reminds me, invisibility. Please tell me.
I am so happy, Bob, to make your day and report that the stupid rule that you still get disadvantage when you attack an invisible creature that you can see, it's gone.
Oh, good.
Now, if you can see an invisible creature, it no longer gains the benefits of invisibility whatsoever.
Then why did fucking Crawford double down on that?
I don't know, but he backpedaled on it pretty quick. So that's gone. And everybody breathed a sigh of relief. And with that, let's talk about the hiding rules, because hiding now actually grants you the invisible condition if you succeed at it.
Okay.
Um, a hiding now requires a DC 15 stealth check rather than rolling against the passive perception of whoever you're trying to hide from. It's just simpler that way, easier to manage at the table.
Hmm. Doesn't make quite as much sense though. I kind of like that rule. But go
But
ahead.
there is a remnant of it. For a creature to find you, they must make a perception or investigation check equal or higher than your stealth roll. So if you roll a crazy 30 stealth check, they're gonna have a really hard time finding you.
If they know to be looking for you in the first place.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So the rules for where and how you can hide are also a bit clearer. Being hidden grants you the invisible condition, like I said, to creatures that you're hidden from. So, like I said, if you surprise your foes while you're hidden, you'll have advantage, and they'll have disadvantage on the initiative roll. So, there are more rules past this. These are the big highlights I wanted to hit. There is some more stuff, like there have been some actions in the game that have been codified that you've already been taking and you've already been doing in your games. For example, there's the search action now, which allows you to make a perception or an investigation check. You were already asking to do that before.
Yeah.
Now there's just a word for it.
Okay.
There's the study action, which is for recalling knowledge or for trying to discern something or study a puzzle or, try and find something in a book. You were already asking for this role anyway. Now there's just a term for it. And some features in the book may call specifically for a study action. They say, hey, you can make study actions as a bonus action, or you can make study actions with a +2 or something like that.
Mm.
So it's just clearer wording. That's all it is. So any questions about anything that we've gone over? This is kind of basically the
Oh,
summarization of what I have been able to glean from day one of the embargo being lifted.
I'm sure I have a bunch of questions, but I don't know what they are right now.
There are a lot that I'm sure will be answered as we go over subclasses, spells, feats, the different class changes. I'm sure we'll have a lot more to talk about as specifics come out. I am, don't tell Watsy, but I'm desperately hoping that somebody leaks the PDF online and then I can just have access to all of it. That'd be great. So right now I'm having to cobble everything. This YouTube video said this, and this article said this, and I'm just trying to pull it all together.
We don't need the Pinkertons at our door, man. Actually,
And
all right. If it happens, have your cameras ready though.
that would
That's a
be some good
YouTube video.
content. Yeah,
Yeah.
get the channel real famous for that. Anyway, so yeah,
All right. Well,
that's what we got so far. There will be more to
that'll
come.
cover us for today. Yeah, we don't give away everything. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you everybody for watching. Uh, we've talked about a lot. There's a lot of new information hitting us really fast. If you got any comments on what we've said, any corrections, any questions, let us have them down in the comment section below. And stay tuned for more. We live in exciting times right now. We
Yeah,
have a new
let
revision. What?
let us know what your favorite change that you've seen so far is.
Yeah.
Be it a
Or least
subclass or a
favorite.
spell or something, or least favorite. Yeah, that too.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.